Coach, I know you had, your fair share of great ball players at Tech over the course of your, career, as well as Kent and Michigan. But with fall wrapping up for a lot of these programs, I guess in the next week or so and the semester winding down, maybe some of the things that you stress to your players, and the importance of the off season and when they go home and, coming back ready, or and maybe some of the things you've seen with some of your players, good or bad, of what they did. And I know as a coach, like it's pretty easy to tell. I know we always, could kind of look at the body first, but maybe some of those things that you stressed and kind of saw over your time of what the good ones did and what the bad ones did.
Yeah, no, I think you look at the cycles of the season. So if you're a college player, like you're pretty much going really hard from January to June, hopefully, and then you're probably going off and playing somewhere in the summertime, particularly if you're a position player. Like I think it's critical that position players are constantly getting at bats and getting challenged and having to work on the craft of certainly hitting and competing. Then, they may get a little break in August and then they're back in school and then they're working out all fall. And then now, as you said, like, Major League Baseball is winding down. They've got the Arizona Fall League going. There's, definitely games going in the Dominican. But the college guy, this is kind of probably November, December. It's a break for them. And when I say break, I think that for some of them, they may need to let their bodies recover a little bit. And then they're going to need to kind of stay in the strength and conditioning cycle, in November and December, and not let their bodies get away from them. I think the probably the most important thing though is just to get a little mental break. I think you get in that grind and you're competing and not only are you competing in games, but you're competing in the competition that you have within the team of trying to secure a spot in the starting lineup or a spot in the rotation. So I think that mental break is as key as anything, kind of in November and December. And it could be, I know we always would have exit meetings on, hey, here's the things that you do really well, and here's the things you need to improve upon. And so, maybe you got a 6 week cycle during that time where you can, come back in January and you've improved by what, the feedback you got from the coaching staff. So, I think if you're a high school kid and you've played all summer and you've played all fall, I think you definitely need a break. I would say like the pitching development, the pitching health, that has changed a little bit. It used to be that almost guys would take 2 months off and then they'd get back in a throwing program that would probably last 6 to 8 weeks and lead them into working out again, whether it's college or high school. I think that philosophy is kind of trending more like you take a 2 week break, but then maybe you just for another period of a month kind of keep your arm somewhat in shape by playing catch 3 times a week.
Just keep it
Maybe
moving a
you
little
get in
bit.
a long toss program, and I would just speaking from my experience at Georgia Tech, I think that has kept our guys at Georgia Tech healthier during that time period. And I think what you worry about, and I'm glad to see pro baseball kind of take the initiative of not allowing scouts to go have workouts in December with pitchers and hitters, give them a little break. You've got showcases that go in December, and I have seen pitchers not ramp up properly, and then they go throw in a showcase, and all of a sudden their arm starts bothering them. So, I think you have to be smart about how you use kind of November and December to head into the new year in January.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more info out there now where it's kind of not the old put the ball down for 2 months and then kind of get back into it. Like I do agree that probably the mental stress, I think, is probably what you were alluding to, where you're not in that competition every day. And but you're still training. You're still
Yes.
moving your arm, whether you're tinkering with grips as a pitcher or you're still continuing to swing, but it's maybe um, less reps or a little bit more focused in one thing that you're trying to get accomplished, whether it was an end of the season meeting or I mean, shoot, a lot of these players kind of know their swings at the highest level better than anyone else. So they know what they got to do, but you're taking that stress of trying to earn a job or um, just competing on a daily basis with a scoreboard, I guess, and still
Yeah.
get better. Because when it gets turned on again, it doesn't stop for, like you said, hopefully through June, and then you get in the summer. And I agree. I think those summer at bats for college players, and it sucks because a lot of guys aren't playing anymore, or they're not wanting to play as much as like I love summer ball. I thought that was the one of the biggest development pieces in my career was going out swinging a wood bat, hearing something a little different, maybe comparing yourself to someone that you thought was, oh, they're at this school, especially for me coming from a junior college and coming into tech, I was like, well, all these guys that are at Miami and, LSU and like I'm way better hitter than they are, so it kind of gave me that little bit of confidence coming in and like, all right, I know these guys are good, but I've already, kind of shown that I can play with them without playing with them yet. So I think summer ball is. I used to weed out guys like if you didn't want to play, you probably weren't going to play for me either. So
Yes.
now an injury is different or something like that, but guys that love playing and love playing every day, especially if you want to play pro ball, um, that's you have to. I mean, because
Yes, I agree. And it's the closest thing to pro
yep,
baseball of just getting in there, to your point, using the wood bat. You're particularly if some of the leagues you play in, you're playing against the best of the best in college that are going into those summer leagues and playing. So gives you a good chance just to evaluate where you're at, compare yourself to other guys, like you said, and that can be a great thing.
yeah, and I think high school or college, I guess, leading into the spring season, I mean, you can also tell the guys that didn't do anything, and how tough it is to catch up. Um, because I know, especially coaching up north, and you did and played up there, like you're on the road for the first 5 weeks of the season. So you basically have that month span or whatever, maybe 6 weeks before the season starts to either catch up, earn a job. Once those jobs are established, especially for those northern teams, like there's not a lot of change to the lineup because you're on the road 5 of the 7 days. And so your coaches aren't seeing you. You're either left at home or you're getting BP reps that day or, on game day, and that's it. You're not practicing. So the importance of, especially the northern guys, of staying ready when you step on campus and give yourself the best chance to, crack a lineup or, kind of be one of those first guys off the bench because when the season gets going, like you don't have a lot of time to necessarily practice and show that you're ready. So
Yeah, no, no, you're right, and I think just coaches know who put work in, who didn't, who kind of came back to school ready to try to earn a job, who didn't, and those guys that don't prepare themselves, to your point, they can get left behind in a hurry, and particularly if it's a pitcher that's just not ready to compete, then that just throws up major red flags to the pitching coach, to the head coach, to his teammates,
yep.
because everybody knows.
And you can't trust them. And that's the thing is if you come back ready, there's at least that initial trust, whether you're getting outs or getting shelled, like at least you trust to put them in the game early on, where if you come back not ready, you can't even put them out there because you can't trust that they're going to hold a lead or keep it where it's at and it's not fair to the teammates either that did do all the work and, kind of earn that spot on the field, whether it's on the mound or
Yeah.
field.
No,
So,
you're 100% right on that.
but no, I thought that competing part because when they go home, you don't want to like crush them too much in the fall to where they need to take too big of a break. But giving them a little bit of freedom, and maybe it's like kind of creating the culture of early and extra work to where the guys are kind of they know how to work on their own. Whether it's I know 20 hours in Kara, whether it's um, abided by or not, but I mean, there is restrictions when, coaches are there. So having some sort of, obviously facilities have gotten better across the country um, but having that culture of guys showing up early to work or hitting after practice, I think that's just as important. So they're used to practicing on their own or in small groups when there's no coach there. So when they go home, it's just kind of the norm where, um,
No, and I think that, it certainly happened. That's my experience at Georgia Tech was, even though, fall baseball ends first part of November, most places, guys are still hitting up until, they go home for Christmas break. They're hitting on their own, they're hitting together. And that's a great thing because I think it just gives them a chance to bond, almost kind of to coach each other and look out for each other. And then when they go home for Christmas, I mean, there's hitting facilities almost on every corner these days. So, they have no excuse not to, continue to hit or throw or whatever they feel like they need to do to be ready in January.
yeah. And I mean, I'd say in the last, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years, like the facilities has really like ramped up across the country. Um, I'm just curious when you were, because basically there shouldn't be an excuse, right? When you were growing up, we won't say how long ago that was, but like you had to do some things that were maybe a little unconventional, but you did them, right? Like you just whether it was, growing up throwing the ball against the wall and fielding ground balls off with the tennis ball off the garage or hitting into a net or, playing, you know, bottle caps and wiffle balls and sunflower seeds, whatever it was, just in hand eye, but there was no excuse. Like you still were getting better, even if there was a bunch of white stuff all over the ground, and you couldn't go out and run around and catch fly balls and take ground balls in the field. Um, so I think that's important for these guys. Like there's no excuse. Like you can do it. It's just it kind of separates the guys that um, really want it and really want to do it, or just kind of do it because they're maybe good at it or it's fun or their parents want them to or whatever.
Exactly. And I think, that's a great point. So I grew up in Ohio and, I went to a little small school. So I played all three sports, played football in the fall, played basketball in the winter. And then, for us, baseball probably didn't start till April 1st. So even when basketball got over, you still had a month to kind of get ready to, start playing, competitive games in high school. But, all summer long, like the important development piece, not only are you playing like high school baseball, but I would play every summer, and I think that's a critical part for a Midwest kid or a Northern kid to get those games in the summer. And I always think, well, it would just kind of grind me a little bit that football coaches would demand, that these guys are in football workouts all summer long, and then it kind of takes away from the baseball development. So, to your point, there's many ways to just keep getting better. And I would always take if I go home to visit. My family, I will always take my boys by the house that I grew up in and say, okay, you see that brick building right there? I threw into that brick building every day, and whether it was maybe I was working on pitching and just throwing the ball where it's supposed to go, or I was working on my fielding, throw it into the wall and then catch ground balls. We had a big backyard, so as a young kid, there was a game going on in that backyard every day with the guys in the neighborhood, and I'm 100% convinced that that helped me develop as a baseball player. And we had a kind of gravel street. So, I'd take a wood bat and I'd flip rocks and hit rocks and make sure I didn't hit them into somebody's window. But I was doing something every day in the summertime to develop as a baseball player.
Yeah, I did the same with Blake with because he's an infielder, good hands, and I would just rifle ground balls on the asphalt. And after like four or five, the ball's chewed up, it's taking hops, and I'm like, he's laying on. I'm like, nope, get in front of it because you're gonna play on some fields that are worse than this street right here.
Yes.
But it's just finding little things, taping the little square on the wall, and whether you're pitching or fielding the ground ball, hitting a target, like there's always things that you can do without the stresses of competing, but still getting the training, I guess is kind of what I was getting at. Like
Yes.
no excuses. And those guys just need to, I think, realize that you have it pretty good right now. I don't think the taking away from the multi-sport and especially the three sport guys, like, because that is training too. I would play football and get big and strong, more of the physical phase, and I went to soccer and get in really good shape. And baseball season comes around, like I was fresh, I was in as good a shape as I could be. Now it's just go all year round. So they need to figure out ways to keep getting better, but not be stressed out all the time of making this team or getting this scholarship or earning this position, but still able to get better. I think that's probably one of the biggest causes of injury nowadays is just there's just so much. And I agree, you need to throw a lot, but it's a lot standing out there and rotating as much as you do and not training other athleticisms with different sports.
Yeah. When my kids were young, like people would come up to me and they'd say, well, what do you do for your kids with agility training? And I'm like, they're playing football, they're playing basketball.
Yeah.
They never played soccer, but soccer is a great sport just for conditioning and movement and kind of going back to what I said earlier. You play a different sport, you're learning how to compete. Particularly if it's football, you're learning how to get rocked, and then you got to get back up
Yep.
and try to make another play. But it also gives you a mental break from baseball. Just gives you something else to kind of focus on, and the team aspect of playing for a team with teammates. I just think all that is great.
No, I agree. And so we've kind of touched on a lot of it. I say if you want to give one message, I guess, for guys to do, because there are certain things that you can kind of look for and just with their body, their arm action, their swings and all that. But maybe a piece of advice to give these guys as they go away and just kind of know the importance of whether it's earning a spot or making a team or getting playing time, or maybe it's being ready for the scouts that are there on the high end guys.
I think just
Advice.
yeah, a couple things we haven't touched on it yet, but I think just the value of academics, like
Yeah.
take care of your stuff in the classroom, and if you're an A student, be an A student. If you're a B student, be a B student, and then C stands for average. Everybody can make C's, but don't do something in the classroom that is going to keep you from going to a school that you may want to go to. So I think that's one. And I always say the guys that I know are taking care of themselves in school, those are usually your best players and most focused players. So I think that's one. I've never seen any player ever or anybody that I think is successful that hasn't worked hard and put work in to get better. And I think baseball is a skill game. There's a lot of skills required to play the game. And I think you just can't focus on being a good hitter, or if you're a pitcher, you just can't focus on being a hard thrower. There's a lot that goes into it. So just focus on all the skills that would give you every opportunity to get on the field, earn a starting spot. And I think you're seeing it more and more in pro baseball. Guys that are very versatile and can play a lot of positions. They get chances to play a lot more than a guy that maybe is just pigeonholed into one position. So I think it's just, I used to say this, probably said it to you guys, we're going to work hard and then we're going to play hard.
Hmm.
And so that would be my advice. Just take care of the schoolwork, put your time in, put your work in, and then be ready to give it everything you got on game day.
Yeah. And if you put the work in, you kind of know that you've got a chance. But if you didn't, there's always that probably thought in the back of your mind where you're faking it too much. But it was funny. Dennis Rogers, he used to tell me all the time because I was a corner. I had played center there, but I was a corner outfielder, and he's like, man, you got to figure out first base. You got to, at someday you're probably going to catch. And he's like, you got to make yourself marketable, more marketable. Be more marketable, Wally. Like, don't just go take fly balls. Like, you suck at first base. Go take some ground balls. Make yourself more marketable. And
Hmm.
sure enough, like I stayed catcher first, right, batter's box. Like that was just like, but I could play four different spots on a field in
Yes.
pro ball where I thought I was just going to be an outfielder my whole life. I coach's kid, played short in little league, so they moved me to center field. And so I played outfield in little league. I was just an outfielder my whole life, and I loved it. But then it was like, no, there's only three of those guys. You can open yourself up to basically
Yeah.
six positions on the field. Make yourself more marketable. He always used to hit me with
Yeah.
that all the time. So,
And then yeah, and then and you were a great example of this, and I do want to say this. I say it to guys all the time. If you can hit, you
yep,
can play a long time. I don't care if it's your high school team, your travel team, your college team, your professional team. If you can hit, you can play a long time.